I am broadcasting on all AM frequencies. I will be at the South Street Seaport every day at midday, when the sun is highest in the sky. If you are out there, if anyone is out there, I can provide food, I can provide shelter, I can provide security. If there's anybody out there, anybody, please, you are not alone.
Joe Biden's career took off.
They gave a surprise party yesterday for Joe Biden, who will make history because of his age when he takes his seat in the new Senate.
It nearly came to an abrupt end.
I mean, the world completely turned upside down in a nanosecond.
Just weeks after being elected, one of the youngest senators in U.S. history, Biden was in Washington setting up his office when tragedy struck.
And men like Ted Kennedy and Mike Mansfield and Hubert Humphrey, Fritz Hollings, Danny Inouye, they convinced me to stay.
In the face of tragedy in 1972 and again in 2015, Biden took on a new role as an ambassador of grief.
You'll know it's going to be okay when the first instinct is you get a smile to your lips before you get a tear to your eye.
That moment 48 years ago, a formative one on Biden's long road to the White House.
Mike Memley with that report.
Yep.
Exactly one
like
year
I
ago
told you
tonight,
guys.
The House of Representatives approved 2 articles of impeachment.
Right there
against
is
President Donald J. Trump, charging
hindsight.
him with abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. Trump is only the 3rd U.S. president in history to be impeached in the more than 232-year history of the office. Meanwhile, President-elect Joe Biden is offering hope for where we will be 1 year from today.
Everything that you just heard right now, just now, every single thing that you just heard is exactly what I said on my video about how this presidency was going to go down. I mean, I don't really know how to make it any more evident to you guys by showing you the proof. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be doing the video showing where the time frame that I said what was going to happen in this presidency, as well as other things, by looking at 1972 and the things that are connected to 2020, and that's pretty much what I'm going to show today. That's to show how I was able to predict the future of what was going to happen, even though there was a lot of people who were telling me at the time, there's no way, Donald Trump was going to win. There's no way that it's impossible for Biden to win because of X, Y, and Z. And I said, okay, yeah, I agree that those things make a lot of sense. However, 1972 in reverse tells you that this is what's going to happen. So regardless of what you want to happen, it does not matter. And if you listen on the video, the one video I said about, hindsight is 2020 and the presidency says that Trump will lose in a landslide. That's exactly what I said was going to happen. And it's not because I don't care. And that's why I told people, why even bother voting? Because it does not matter. You are in a time loop. You are in a simulation. How is it possible I was able to read the future? Come on. I don't have magical powers. I literally looked at 1972. The overwhelming facts, 1972 and 2020 connections that I shared in that one video where I posted, I think like 20 facts and all the things that were surrounding them that connected 1972 to 2020 together. That's enough right there. Should make world news. This should be world news. This should not be a handful of people on the internet looking at this stuff saying, how the hell did this guy figure this stuff out? How is this possible that all this stuff happened in 1972? How is it possible all this stuff is connected to 2020? This should be world breaking news. It should change the entire world, but it won't because you're in a simulation. How is it possible? A guy like myself with my intelligence is not the highest intelligence in the world, although sometimes I feel like I am walking around a bunch of people who just really are just completely like how can you be that stupid about a lot of stuff? But whatever. But how is it possible that I am the only person, and I had somebody leave a comment one time on one of my videos and said, "You're not the only person. There's other people that thought this stuff too." You thought it? Okay, sure. That's like the kid that says, "Oh, I was gonna give you some of my candy, but I'm not gonna now." Whatever, that's just childish stuff, and that actually tells me you're probably an NPC, you're just making up stuff. How the hell is it possible that I'm the only person? Think about that real fast. How is it possible I'm the only person in the world that was able to find these connections? That does not make any sense. That does not add up at all. There should be a lot of people out there who are extremely smart, intelligent, who's running the world, who are scientists, who are, whatever, who should have been able to put these things together, and that shit should have been world news. They should have said, yeah, if you look at 1972 and all those things that happened in this historic year, which is another thing. How come nobody else in the world has said 1972 is the most historic year in history? Because it doesn't make sense. And you can say about this and that, about programs and things and all these things that are connected to 1972, well, they have connections to the other years and stuff. No, what it is in the year 1972, a thing was created or a thing was canceled. Those creations and cancellations were directly connected to the year 2020. The last time the CIA ran the spy program, and now in the year 2020, the biggest thing that we are talking about is the corona. In 1972, the government stopped, Air Force quit using the program Operation Popeye, and then in the year 2020, we don't, and then for the last 48 years, you still see a whole bunch of aerosols in the sky. But in the year 2020, when there was like almost no planes flying because planes are canceled, you saw the bluest skies that you have in 48 years. This has been the bluest skies, the less tampered skies I have seen in my entire life in 48 years. 48 years ago, there was a program that said they stopped doing, which they were told they said they were going to stop doing, but of course it never stopped. However, now in 2020, it actually really stopped. There are connections that are so overwhelming, and looking at all that stuff and seeing all these things, it makes it evident and clear that it's not a cover-up. It's not a conspiracy. You are in a simulation. It is a program that is running. The program is not going to try to cover up anything because there aren't people trying to cover it up. It's a program. You're in a simulation. This is the way a computer works. A computer will literally look at a computer will work on connections, okay? That's how it operates. It's like I said, AI cannot create. It can only recreate what's already been programmed into it. In other words, if you give it, two objects, you give it a square and you give it a circle, and you said, here you go. AI can take the square and circle and continue to keep manipulating the square and circle so that it makes different looking shapes. However, the base core is still square and circle. It is not a new shape that it created. It literally just used a square and circle. It used recreation. It did not create something new. In 1972 is a smoking gun of a bunch of events that happened in the natural reality during different years. But in the simulation, they are all crammed into that 1 year because that was the beginning point of when the simulation starts. That's when the last time you seen the picture of Earth. The full clear picture of Earth. There's a reason why. And then in 2020, those things are connected because the simulation is coming to a close. It's coming to an end. I'm hearing things about people saying all kinds of doomsday scenario things before this year's up. And one of them is about the volcano going off in Yellowstone. I absolutely do not believe 100% that volcano is going to erupt. Do you know why I don't buy into that and don't believe it? It makes sense that all these earthquakes are happening and stuff around there. It shouldn't be happening. It makes sense that it's a good possible, to look at this. This could be very dangerous. This could happen. There's a possibility that could happen and that could wipe out all humanity. And that's one of the reasons why we're in a simulation. That's a good possibility. but there are no connections to the year 1972. So I'm not looking at that. I'm not looking at direction. I'm looking in a direction of things that are literally historic events that happened in 1972. It was a historic event that we had a race riot on a ship. Our Navy men, and I don't think there was any women on it, but our Navy men on a ship, the USS Kitty Hawk, boxed into a ship, had a race riot. That was a historic thing. That's never happened before or after. A race riot on a ship. Our soldiers fighting. In the year 2020, there may be a political coup. There may be a military coup. The military, if you think that if what's going on with Clockwork Orange, and you think that, the Clockwork Orange Godfather, and you think that he is going to walk away. I said in my videos months ago that he was not going to leave because it tells you in 1972, Clockwork Orange Godfather, when those movies came out, when he was in trouble under investigation for racism. I told you that this was the outcome for this man because you are in a simulation, not because I hate or like or love this man. It's a digital character to me. It does not matter. And you are in a simulation and he is not going to leave. And if you think, if it's possible, which it's very much possible, by the time this year is up, if the next 2 weeks, we end up getting into total civil war, and you think that all the troops are just going to take his side, or all the troops just going to take Biden's side, you're sadly mistaken. There will be a fight, a war inside of the military itself. The men and women will be fighting each other inside the military. That is more of a plausible thing that's going to happen. That would be the end of America. Your democracy and everything that you know died a long time ago. You are in a simulation. Those things are gone. They're in the past. You can no longer trust an election. You can no longer take somebody who's an outsider outside of politics and say that they can become a president. People will always think that it's going to be rigged. And the thought of saying that he has a chance to come back in 4 years, Godfather Clockwork Orange, in 4 years he can come back and he can re-challenge the presidency once again, and he can try to get elected again. He's gonna be 78. Use your damn critical thinking. 78 years old? He's not gonna wait for 4 years and decide to come back at 78 years old, pushing 80, and try to run again. That's impossible. He cannot leave. He will not leave. You are in a simulation that is coming to a close. This is the end. It's not a scary thing. It's not something that you should be sad or depressed about. It's not something that I fantasize about. You just need to learn to accept what this is. Just like when you put on your favorite movie on a DVD and you watch the movie from beginning to end, and maybe it's a movie that you are really attached to, a character that you love, and you say, oh my gosh, I don't want this movie to end, but it will end. And you can still go back and watch it again and still love that character that you were so attached to in that movie. This is how I handle the simulation. This is how I understand this simulation. You could still love and hate the characters in that movie, but regardless, you will never change the outcome. It's going to be the same. And one day, you will wake up in a lab somewhere or in a hospital room somewhere, and they will have done whatever surgery that they needed to do on you to save your life. And they will be wearing, guess what? Mask. Because you just came out of a surgical procedure. Not because of a computer virus, but because now your simulation is up, and now going into the natural reality, the doctors and the people that are going to be surrounding you are going to be wearing masks, and they're going to say you don't have to wear a mask, and they're going to get you caught up on everything. And that should make sense too, coming to the end of the simulation. Every time that we get here, there's always going to be that mask, getting your mind prepared for going into the natural reality, talking about reset, going into the natural reality, or going back into 1972. And they will most likely probably debrief you on what the future is. They'll have something to explain to you what the present, I'm sorry, not the future, but the present. They will explain to you what is in the present now. And you will understand everything at that point, and you'll remember that you signed this contract. And you'll remember that you asked for this because of X, Y, and Z, whatever was wrong with you, or leapfrogging through time. Like I said, it could be a possibility that you may have lost everything in your life except money. Everything and everyone may be gone before you walked into Alcor, and the only thing you had left in life was money, and you could not live with the grief of your losses, and decided that you would pay them the money to leapfrog you through time into another time for 200 years, 400 years. I like to use the 400 years thing because I have said a lot of times in my life when people ask me how old I am because they had a hard time guessing my age, especially with my voice, and I would joke around and say 400 years. I did not know why. Maybe I am in a 400-year loop. We're not all gonna wake up at the same time. Doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work like that, man. You may be down for hell. You may be only in the loop for 15, 20 years. Maybe you're only 15 years out from getting your cancer cured. I did a video on it that explains the step-by-step of what processes it would take to get you to this point to where you're in a simulation. Go watch that video. You only have 10 days, like 10 days left out. I think we're maybe 13 days away from EndGame 2020. Watch my videos. Understand what's happening. Accept it. It's not a bad thing. You shouldn't be afraid. You should not be scared. You should just love everyone around you much more. December 31st, if we make it to that point, when you go to sleep that night, sleep well. You most likely are going to wake up in 1972 or somewhere in between of 1972 and 2020 all over again. There's always a possibility of going into 2021. Regardless, there's always that possibility. It doesn't change anything. You're still in a simulation. It doesn't change anything. There's still facts that prove that show that. 1972 time glitch, 2020 time glitch. Anything after that into 2021? What do you think is 2021 going to look like anyhow? What do you really think 2021 is going to look like? It is not going to be 2019. You're not going back that way. Everything in this year is exactly how a climactic ending in some epic saga, some Star Wars 9 trilogy movie, some Lord of the Rings 9 trilogy movie, some Marvel 9 trilogy movie. It's how you build up an ending plot. What would be an ending plot from the year 1972 when Clockwork Orange, Godfather first got in trouble? When, I need to find a better name for Biden. When the B-Man, we're going to call him the B-Man. When the B-Man lost his wife and kids and he became the youngest senator, making history in that same year. One shown as becoming this young, sympathetic, maybe good guy. Regardless of what you feel about the man and how much you hate him, it does not change anything in this movie. Let go of that. Get rid of the systematic mind thinking that keeps you trapped in the system. Step away from that, remove yourself from that, and just take a look from the outside. Pretend like you're from another damn country. It sets it up, or just pretend like you're watching a movie. It's setting it up in 1972. Here's this young man who becomes the youngest senator in history and, loses his wife and child, right away, his wife and daughter, same year, right after he becomes senator in 1972. And here's this other young up-and-coming businessman who in 1972 is a scoundrel, mob boss guy working in real estate, in trouble for not renting to minorities. It sets it up like a movie, man. And in the year 2020, how did I know that that's exactly the outcome of this presidency? That Biden would win. And they would say sympathy. They would say oldest president in history. They would say Clockwork Orange, Godfather, is a racist and unsympathetic. How did I know that? Because we're watching a movie in a simulation. You need to understand, all you have to do, it's not a magical power. All you have to do is look at all the things in 1972, the first Police Ethics Act went through. The first Police Ethics Act went through in 1972. I don't believe that. But in this simulation, it says that's when the ethics codes went through, was in the year 1972. Look it up. 1972 police ethics. In 2020, the most unethical thing a police officer could do, outside of raping some minor. The next thing is even worse than that, and that's death. Execution, live execution to a person of color, showing no sympathy, compassion. Connecting the year 1972 to 2020. 1972, the song Breathe by Pink Floyd came out. In 2020, Roger Waters, who is the man who sung that song Breathe, also the song Us and Them, which is very familiar to what's going on as well, comes out and speaks out for George Floyd's death and execution and says that these things need to... Go watch my video. I have a video where he's saying it. You can watch him saying it. You are in a simulated time loop. How is it possible all of these things are connected? Movies, music, politicians, and it's all setting up. This year has been set up for a climactic ending to a epic saga of a movie. Or if you're a video game, if you love video games like I do, which came out in the year 1972, this is the way. When you play a game and you start off with your character and you start off with nothing and you build your way up, you build your way to EndGame. And EndGame always has some epic villain at the end that you got to defeat and kill off. And that's why they call it, that's the EndGame. In fact, EndGame became more popular in the video game lingo world than it did anywhere else, and that just bled over into everything else. Avengers, EndGame, stuff like that. But we've been talking about EndGame shit in video games for a long time. What's EndGame on that? You know, what's EndGame like? What's EndGame? Oh, this must be EndGame. You are in a simulation. There are time glitches that prove that. Why am I the only person in the world? Because I don't care when other people say, oh, there's somebody else that's thought of this too. Well, then why were they quiet about it? And don't give me all this X, Y, and Z, because that's just all cynical bullshit and lies. We know that. You're hearing it first here from me, period. You all are hearing it first right now in this year. When I put out my very first video in January 8th or 9th, and I said the year 2020 is going to be a special year because it is a year of clarity. A year of clarity. I said that in the beginning of the year before George Floyd, before the elections, even before the virus, the computer virus hit. The year itself, 2020, is what you need. Hindsight is 2020. It's clarity. You need 2020 to see clearly. The man who made the song I Can See Clearly in 1972 dies in the year 2020, when you need perfect vision is 2020. It's absurd to believe that you're not in a simulation. It's absurd to believe that you are in a natural reality and those things are just natural occurrences or coincidences. It's absurd to believe that they are coincidences and that those coincidences just so happen to match up with coincidences in the year 2020. If it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things, maybe I wouldn't be on this video talking to you about it right now. I would just say that's just a couple of coincidences. That is kind of strange. Something to look at, but I would not put too much stock into it. I would not be taking time out of my life that I have left, because everybody has a number. I would not be taking time out to be getting these videos out to you, to get this message out to you. I am not asking for any type of funding. I'm not monetizing my videos. I am not asking for any Patreons. I am not asking for a damn dime. I'm not selling t-shirts, hats. I own a printing press for my martial arts school where I make t-shirts and uniforms and things like that. And all that stuff's actually gone to the wayside this year. Done. Since this year started, there was no reason to pursue those things anymore. I could easily sell you some of the coolest looking 1972 2020 t-shirts with a bunch of these sayings, all this thing. It does not matter. I could be making money. For what? The simulation is almost over. That's how much I believe it is. That's how much I believe in what's happening because of facts. Let that sink in when you go and you listen to conspiracy theorists talking about shit that they don't have any facts and they're selling you shit. And they want you to buy this and they want you to give them money in their Patreon. Let that sink in. How important is this information that they're getting to you? That it's very important that they get the money. Crying because they're losing subs or because YouTube is demonetizing them. Well, hey man, Is the information important that we should hear it or not? Is it honestly coming from you because you found something that's really happening? Or you're just making shit up to make a buck? You are in a simulation. I am not selling you anything. We are not all getting together, making getting a group of people and meeting up in a camp somewhere. I'm not promoting a new age idea, a new age religion. I'm telling you, love everyone around you. Build bridges were burned before that can be rebuilt. Go out of this year a better person, and not because of some cliche crap of, oh, just become a better person because you're into yoga and you do all these other things or whatever, whatever type of spiritual ideas that you have. I'm telling you that these things will affect your mindset when it resets into the next 1972-2020 loop, if that's what's going to happen. If you're going into a reset, which you have heard quite a few by now, I'm sure everyone listening to my voice has heard somewhere on TV, through news, through somebody else on YouTube, talk about that we're going into a great reset. That sounds exactly like a computer program. Love those around you. Build bridges that can be rebuilt. So that way, when you go through this reset, if we go back into a 1972-2020 time loop, that you don't carry subconscious baggage that you're not aware of, but will probably rear itself in dreams and feelings. Have you had certain dreams where you felt a certain way, or you just kind of had like a mood that you felt a certain way about somebody and you feel like you shouldn't feel that way about them? That may possibly be your subconscious baggage that you're dragging around from other times in these time loop. Your consciousness inside of this simulation is not completely aware of. With the simulation ending and coming to an end, if you want to know what's going to happen, pay attention to the news. I told you months ago, long before the election, that they would never accept the B-man as president of the United States. Back when people were telling me that I was crazy, that Clockwork Orange Godfather would retain the presidency. And I said, he will lose, and when he does, so will the country, because they'll never accept the B-man, and there will be a civil war. How the hell did I predict that months before what's happening now? The firing squad has been put in place. Look it up. Trump has already changed the execution to firing squad now. Brought that back. So it's quicker to execute people who are of the opposition that would be considered treasonous. Instead of waiting around for lethal injection, we're just going to hit you with the bullet on site. That's already been done. Top generals, people who've been there for a while, have been removed, fired, gone. New people put in place, considered cronies to the Godfather with the Clockwork Orange madness, 1972. You think that's not happening? You need to think again. You think that once all that happens and America gets into that state and those things start to happen and this country falls, that the US dollar is going to somehow stick around? 1972, they're already saying the dollar's falling right now. I'm surprised it's still there. Cryptocurrency should already have taken off. We should have already, after the trillions of dollars added onto the trillions of dollars of debt, should have completely destroyed the dollar. But some weird thing has been going on where the markets are up. Just like in 1972, the Dow hit 1,000 points for the first time in history. In 1972, the first time in history, the US dollar was no longer backed by gold. It was a fiat redeemable, no longer redeemable in gold coin, now legal tender. In 2020, this should be gone already. They're talking about it's going to be removed, but I'm surprised by now that it has not had a huge crash. But the moment this country goes into a civil war, the dollar is dead. It will die on that very day. It will never come back because the world is ready for cryptocurrency. The world. Doesn't matter what you want here in the United States. Everything is set in place. 5G, DARPA, 1972. It's all set in place for these things to happen in the Great Reset 2021. The moment the world gets wind that there was civil war going on in this country, the dollar will lose all value. It will die. Right now, they said that the Department of Defense, the DOD, on the news right now. They said that the Pentagon is shutting down right now, today, this is the day that B-Man's wife and daughter died in a car crash in the year 1972. This day, 48 years ago. And he's saying, why is the Pentagon shutting down? Why is the DOD doing things they're not supposed to be doing? Why do you think that is, man? I have another prediction too, and I believe I thought about this a while ago, and I've said it to people that are close to me that know me, but I'm not going to say it here. I cannot say it on any type of social media, because if that prediction comes true, it will rock the whole world. But it all makes sense for a simulation, for an end game. What you do before reset, right? You go into an end game. You keep hearing reset, man. Before reset is an end game. I've been putting out videos for months called EndGame 2020. Do you not see? Do you not have perfect vision? It's happening. You can ignore it. You can pretend like it's not happening. You can act like I'm crazy, and you can dismiss factual evidence, but it won't change a damn thing. It'll change nothing. You're in a simulation. 1972, 2020 time loop. If we go into 2021, I always say there's a possibility it'll prove, because they will be talking about in 2021 that 2020 was an end game for America. And yet again, I was still correct. Let that sink in. Right now, today, this day, the day the B-Man lost everything as he was gaining everything as the youngest senator in 1972, when the CIA ended the Corona program in 1972. Right now, in the year 2020, the CIA director is on the news right now. He is right now on the news talking about Russian hacks and how they have hacked into everything in our system all the way back since March. What else became a big deal in March? Use your critical thinking. Wasn't that around the time the computer virus became more? Wasn't that like right when everything just became more, like everything started shutting down? Everything became, that computer virus was more serious? The same time, now that the same is saying about 1972, the SALT Treaty between Russia and America to stop mass producing nuclear weapons. In 2020, the CIA is getting ready for a war with Russia. They're saying that they've hacked into everything. That is war talk. Everything that you know that's happening right now in this year, just because you don't pay attention to the news, just because you don't pay attention to events that are going on, doesn't mean that they're not happening. You don't have to take my word for it. Go look all this stuff up on your own. Look it up. I post the facts so you guys can see it. Go ahead and try to change those facts. You're in a simulation, guys. Love everybody that you know, that you love everyone around you. Mend those bridges. Do not carry any baggage out of 2020 into the next time loop. Whatever it is that you need to do it. Go out of this simulation with a clear mind. Go out of this simulation wrapped in love. Go out of this simulation being a better person, so that when everything resets, the great reset, and you go back into the 1972-2020 time loop, that you will go into it all over again in a better start than maybe what you had in this simulation. Because here, I can tell you this. Here's something else you guys didn't know about me. Did you know that my mother sold me when I was a baby? Yes, I was not supposed to be here at all in the year 1972 when abortion was illegal. I was nearly bred to be sold. And yes, my mom is also a lesbian, so that's why reason why I have so much diversity. And her girlfriend went and physically stole me back from the person that my mother sold me to. So I have had a very rough start. How many times that happened in a simulation, I don't know. Never met my father, was a child that was bred to be sold, yet I am nothing like my mother. I've been extremely gifted I've been extremely athletic all my life. My mindset has always been different than most my entire life. I've tried to understand all religions, all cultures, never attached to an identity. Maybe there's a reason why I'm here talking to you right now about this. Maybe there's a reason why there was alien footprints walking in my school 3 years ago, 3 days after the total solar eclipse. You're in a simulation. And what you take out of it when you go back through this reset is completely up to you. I'm trying to give you the guidelines. I try to help you go into a better simulation. We can't choose how we're going to come into this thing as far as physically. Your mother selling you because you weren't supposed to be. You were only a child to be sold. But your mind and the core being of who you are will not reflect those things. And they have not for me my entire life. Because out of this simulation, the last time we went through this time loop, I was probably saying these same things to you right now. Getting myself prepared for the time loop to end. I could have went down a completely bad, dark path in my life. And I didn't. And I've always felt, I know people always say they feel like this and that, but truly because I do not have an identity to attach to. But I always felt like I was more important to somebody somewhere. I don't know who that is, but somebody somewhere, I was more important to them. Guys, go out of this simulation, at least go into December 31st. If we make it there, go into that night when you go to sleep. Like I said, go to sleep with a clear conscience, but you have 13 days left. Because I don't want to close on a negative note, because it should not be a negative perspective of exposing all this evidence and that you're in a time loop. If indeed this is EndGame, 2020 is it, and we're going to go back through a simulation into a reset, December 31st, if we make it there, the person that you love and care about the most, take both your hands and put one on each side of their cheek and look at their face and study their face and tell them how much you love them. So that way, in the Great Reset, if we go back into a 1972, that love will be burned into your subconscious mind, and you will find them again in the simulation.
In our own solar system, a 100 microtesla wave of radiation that would destroy our ozone layer, killing every living organism on the planet.
We have to let everyone know. We have to call the NOAA.
They already know. The announcement will come anytime now. I thought there was some purpose to all of this. Why did I get this prediction if there's nothing I can do about it? How am I supposed to stop the end of the world?